Right, evening everybody. Hope everybody's well. Vic, do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chairman. We have apologies from Councillors Clark, Michael, Palmer, Rouse, Wild, Wood and Godwin.
Thank you. Might be an easier task who was here this evening, but thank you for that. Do we have any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests or any other disclosable interests for any of the agenda items this evening? Show of hands if you do. Malcolm?
Thank you, Chairman. I have a non-pecuniary interest in the item at Hollybush Hill because, oh no, that's planning. Apologies.
It's always good to be early, Malcolm. That's fine. That's fine. We'll pass on the note in for that. That's fine. Item number 3, confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. We've got 2, so we had the 25th of November meeting and the 16th of December meeting. Do we take them together or one at a time, Misha? One at a time. Okay, so the 25th of November meeting. Can I have a proposer for those minutes? Thank you. And a seconder, Jeremy? Was that a hand, Beverly? Yeah. Thank you. And can we just have a show of hands for those minutes? People that were there?
Yeah, that's carried.
Thank you. And then on to the 16th of December, so the extraordinary meeting that we had in December. Can I have a proposer for those minutes? Thank you, Peter. And a seconder. Thank you, John. And a show of hands. Who was that? Thank you. Thank you. Both those carried. Okay, thank you. Chairman's announcements. Obviously, Happy New Year to everybody. Good to see you all. I hope you all have a very successful, you all have a very happy and a very healthy 2026 to you and to your families. As Chairman of the Council, I've continued to visit a wide range of services across the county. A few days ago, I also had the pleasure of venturing into Warwickshire to take part in the Ulster Court Leap Parade and service, which was really interesting. We're also closing in on the London Marathon, which I'll be running in support of the Stroke Association. There are amazingly now just 97 days to go. And we'll be sending out an email again shortly with the donation link and just information on that again. Just to say that training is going well despite the weather. I'm up to 4 days a week running and working hard to be ready. And I've not yet done that distance, so it seems really daunting. Also, I wanted to mention our Connected Communities celebration. These awards shine a light on the valuable contributions made by individuals, teams, organisations and businesses across the Malvern Hills district. So really importantly, as councillors, do you know an individual, a team or business in the district that makes a difference to their community and the lives of those around them? We want to celebrate these wonderful people who give their time for free, and we are asking residents to come forward and nominate your local stars. As councillors, you can nominate or speak with people to make sure your community champions are nominated and put forward. We really do want community businesses to be nominated and young people as well. They were 2 areas last year where we could have probably had a few more nominations. That'd be great if you know any of those. And for more information, just go on the Malvern Hills website and search for Connected Communities Celebration, and you'll find more information there. Thank you. Public participation, we don't have any this evening. It's on to leaders' question time, and I believe we've got one from Barbara Jones-Williams. Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Chairman. It's quite a brief one. Leader, I've been concerned for several years that water courses through the Team Valley have not been maintained to the required standard, particularly where obstructions that pose a clear flood risk have not been moved. A recent example being a tree that breached the River Team at Knightwick. Could the leader please clarify who is responsible for undertaking such maintenance work and work with me to ensure that the parties responsible meet their legal obligation?
Thank you. John?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think all of us will share the concerns expressed by Councillor Jones-Williams as our district continues to be impacted by flooding of both the Team and Severn on a regular basis. However, in expressing our concern, it is important that we acknowledge those parties with a legal responsibility for managing our watercourses and, with particular reference to the question, removing obstructions. In general, this would be a riparian responsibility, meaning that the adjacent landowners to the watercourse are responsible. If Councillor Jones-Williams, or indeed any councillor, has specific concerns relating to this topic, then I would suggest that they are raised in the first instance with Martin Cross, our Head of Engineering, who leads on flooding issues for the South Worcestershire authorities. If further political support is needed, then I am more than happy to engage in further discussions with landowners.
Thank you, John. Do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, obviously I didn't know what the reply was going to be, but you say that it's the landowners. Yes, I agree. The landowners have got a responsibility for the river banks and also for the bed of the river. But if the Environment Agency carries out maintenance such as dredging or bank repairs on a main river like the River Team to reduce flood risks, they are responsible for financing that scheme, usually through central government grants from DEFRA. Can you clarify that, please?
John?
Well, I find this is, I mean, I'm sort of questioning the deeper responsibilities like you're just doing at the moment. I was informed that this is quite a difficult area to see any clarity in. So I think maybe the best thing to do is for us to have a discussion with Martin Cross, our Head of Engineering, to see what happens in that particular situation. And the other question that I had about it that followed on from that, if the blockage, if there's a tree that comes from an adjacent area and is moved downstream, who in reality is responsible for that? Wherever the tree came from, or is it where it lands up? So there's a number of issues that I think we could investigate, and if you wish, we could have a discussion with Martin on that.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Barbara.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. On to item number 7. So this is the medium-term financial plan for 2026-27 through to 28-29. I'd like to go back to John to invite you to move the recommendations in the report.
Thank you, Chair. This is to review and recommend that the Council approve the updated medium-term financial plan for the next 3 years ahead, which is up to 28-29. So this is the revenue capital decisions updated annually, and previously we were going for 5 years, and this time, because of LGR, we were looking at a shorter time frame in front of us. So this medium-term financial plan shifts the focus of our decisions onto a 3-year basis. However, the philosophy remains the same, that we're looking for financial stability, and it will provide the basis for the business plan and the detailed budget coming up in 26-27, the next financial year. The assumptions are that the council tax increases are kept as low as possible, and when we maintain the capital reserves at a level to avoid the need to borrow. And Table 1 lists those assumptions. We aim to remain debt-free, as we have done for this last number of years, and that's still the case. The revenue budget increases. There will be additional costs that you can see in summary in Table 2. The full cost of waste food collections estimated at 1.3 million, or just over that, as part of a shared service, an increased investment of £100,000 for housing, and there's LGR costs have been estimated or provided for up to the sum of 500,000. We have put a provision of £1.8 million made for council priorities in the coming financial year, and I think in terms of our income, interest rates may weaken over the coming period, and the return from these will be lower. So any unexpected extra spend that results will need to be met by extra savings. The total cost net budget increases from 10.69 million to 11.71 million by the end of the period, which is 28-29. The cumulative efficiencies and budget savings. Efficiency and budget savings to be made year on year, and table 3 shows up to 29/30, £375,000 identified through the business plan. Government funding, fairer funding review eventually was published, and the current money from that covers 3 areas: local business rates, revenue support grant, and the extended producer responsibility payments. The business rates reset baseline is now 1.65 million for 26-27, and we'll get a percentage of that if we collect more business rates above that figure. However, we will also be affected if that figure drops below that 1.65 million target. We have assumed the business rates to be flat until 26-27, after which the reset will take place. The revenue support grant is £3.9 million in 26-27, reducing in the next 2 years and offset by damping payments with 3.1 million in 28-29. If you notice that on the council tax, we are not budgeting for council tax increases over the next period, so there's a flat council tax figure, no increases over the next 3 years. And it is assumed that the tax base will rise with build-out rates with a growth of 1.5% per annum. The general fund balance remains in excess of £3 billion to ensure financial stability, and the capital programme proposed is £80.7 million over 3 years, where realising assets for disposal and build-up of capital replacement reserves will continue. The phased replacement of the vehicle fleet will leave us with a £500,000 refurbishment of the depot, and the estimated capital reserves at the end of the period will be £35,000. That's the medium-term financial plan.
Thank you, John. And you're moving the recommendation 1 to approve the council's medium-term plan. Perfect. Thank you. Do we get a seconder for that? Thank you, Jeremy. Do you want to speak to that, Jeremy, at all?
Just to say thanks to Andy and his team for looking after our funds in a studious and beneficial way for everyone. So thanks to the officer and the team.
Thank you. So I'd like to open this up to discussion, debate, questions, and we do have Andy with us as well. Malcolm.
Thank you, Chair. It's probably just my misunderstanding, but looking at table 2 at 5.2, we have food waste, housing and government grants all put together, making £1,707,100,000. Why are government grants in there? Because I thought government grants was money incoming, not something that we had to pay for.
Thank you, John.
Could I ask Andy to elucidate on that one?
Right, now Andy.
Thank you, Chair. Those are government grants that have been taken away from us in this settlement. So whereas the government have given us other grants, revenue support grants, etc., there are certain government grants that actually they've taken away, so we have to add those costs back in.
John?
Thank you, Chair. Paragraph 7.8, please, the RSG revenue support grant. Could someone explain the damping payments offset by increased damping payments? Thank you.
John?
Yeah, as I understand it, the damping payments are to avoid a step change in funding. So it's like a smoothing of the cut-off of the payment. So there is some funding there to avoid, it's like a resonance that you would get, a financial resonance with such a sharp drop. So the damping is to stop that resonance.
Thank you. Paul Cummings first.
Paragraph 5.2 refers to the costs of the new waste collection. Is there sufficient in there so properties currently collected in sacks will be able to receive the same as everybody else? Or do they because the alternative is still collecting by tax, by bags.
Thank you, Paul. John, do you want to say that?
Was Ian?
Ian, you okay?
There you go. Is that okay? So, I think the question relates to food waste, where people currently present in sacks. Is that the case?
Yes.
So the food waste approach that we're required to do is a 23-litre bin for presentation at curbside and a 7-litre bin for the kitchen. However, it is optional for the resident whether they present it or not. It's not optional for us to whether we provide it or not. So I think the sack collections is going to be a difficult one, but it's for the resident to decide how they wish to deal with it. We probably won't include sack collections on the early phase of our introduction because we want to understand how the process works first before we challenge the trickier aspects of it.
Is that okay, Paul? Yep. Thank you, Ian. So it's Paul, and now I'll come to you, Mark. Is that okay? Sorry, Paul first. Sorry, Mark.
Hi. The section 114 possibility coming forward from the county situation and the delay in being able to actually collect council tax, has that been contingent? You know, kind of, is there a contingency being put into all of this just in case things get a bit hairy?
Shall I go to Andy? Andy, do we have?
Well, members will be aware we've got a contingency in terms of dates for the council meeting. That's the first thing. If there are any additional costs coming out of county's inability to set a council tax or a preset, that will be for the county council to pay. So we wouldn't have to pay anything in those circumstances. But I would hope beyond all hope that we're not in that situation.
Thank you, Andy. Paul, was that okay?
Yeah, we are trying to make sure that doesn't happen. I just wanted to bring it up.
Okay, thank you. Mark.
Thank you. I certainly support the recommendations in this paper. My question is also to do with food waste. Obviously, we got a capital grant, just under £1 million, I think, for the equipment. Do we know the status? We may have already had an answer from government around covering operational costs. I think this was due at the end of the last year. Has that happened? If so, how much? Or if not, do we know any indication when government are going to give us indication to cover operational costs?
Thank you, Mark. Is this Andy or Ian?
I'll have a go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. We received around £900,000 of capital funding last year, which has been committed. The vast majority has already been committed on the vehicles. We also received transitional funding, and we've got an earmark reserved currently of around £500,000, and that will pay for the purchase of the caddies and the delivery of the caddies and some other setup costs as well. So that's separate to the 1.307 million that is in the report tonight, and that 1.3 million is there to cover the costs of refurbishing the new depot that we bought in the current financial year, and also the rollout of the service later on this financial year, and it will then cover the full cost of the service next year. There is no more money from government that we're aware of. The financial settlement that's detailed in this report supposedly includes all the money we need to be able to pay for food waste. And as you can see, given that we have got money to invest in our priorities as well this year, that does seem to ring true. But there isn't a transparent figure within this year's settlement you can say is for food waste. It's just included within the overall figures.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Andy.
Andy. Mark, is that okay? Yeah, thank you. Jeremy.
Just to come back on that, I mean, we're as far as councils go, we're probably in an exceptionally good position ahead of the food waste collection, both in terms of getting ahead of the game and getting the orders in for the equipment before everyone's ordering at the last minute, but also the opportunity for us to extend the depot to provide that future depot going forward. In terms of going live, I do believe we're going to be in a good position to get this rolled out during the next financial year, and we will be doing pilots to make sure that we do it properly. But I think of all the councils across the UK, I'd like to commend Ian and the team on the work that they've done, and actually commend this council on making the investments in improving everything in good time to mean that we're going to go live and probably be at the front of the game going forward for when the next council takes over.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any final questions or thoughts before we go to the vote on this? Okay, perfect. So we've had the recommendation moved by John and seconded by Jeremy. Go to the vote.
All those in favour, could you raise your cards now, please? That's unanimous.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, so back to you now, John. So this is a pay policy statement. Can I ask you to move the report?
Yeah, so this is for the council. The council be recommended to approve the pay policy statement for 2026-27. The chief officer's pay, this is determined by national agreement, and the system of grading follows the Hay evaluation methodology. The pay scale's progress is subject to annual performance appraisal, and there are no performance-related bonus elements to pay. Mileage and subsistence are also nationally determined, and all other levels are subject to National Joint Council scales. In Malvern Hills, there are no staff are paid lower than the pay scale 3, and the pay scales are shown actually in Appendix A, if you would want to have a look at that. All staff are supported in local government pension scheme by the employer contribution, which amounts to 13.6%. So I move that we recommend we approve that pay policy statement.
Thank you, John. Can I get a seconder for this? Peter? No, we'll do Peter. All right.
There's no need to speak to this. We get given the numbers by Westminster, then we're told we have to agree them. But we do get very good value, I would echo previous statements from our officers and staff generally, who I thank for their efforts publicly.
Thank you, Peter. Any comments, thoughts on this? Can we take to the vote? No.
All those in favour, could you raise your cards, please? Unanimous.
Thank you. Statement of licensing policy review. So this is to Councillor Owinson. Jeremy?
Thank you. So this came before council last year, where we put it out for consultation. The consultation was limited, but generally supportive of what we were proposing, and the new licensing policy is attached in the document. What we've done is marked in red where those changes are. The majority of these changes actually relate to asking the people who run licensed premises to take extra steps to provide safeguarding. So you might remember, I think when this went out last year, we were talking about the provision of blood kits. It's got requirements around terrorism. It's got requirements around, I'm going to get the name wrong again, ask for Angela. I was asking for somebody else entirely the other day. The Ask for Angela is very good. If anyone was watching Blue Lights, which is the BBC Northern Ireland police programme, it was actually in the storyline there where a woman asked if a certain police officer called Angela was available, and that tipped the team off that she was in an abusive relationship. So anything we can do to make our licensed premises safer for both the people in the premises and the customers is a good thing. There's a balance in here between making recommendations and asking, rather than putting too many requirements that put an undue financial burden on publicans. So I think this policy strikes a good balance there, and I'm happy to propose that we approve it at council.
Thank you, Jeremy. Can I get a seconder to this motion? Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Chair. With my licensing chair hat on, I'm very happy to second this. It's a particularly good and easily readable document, so thank you for that to Niall. As my colleague has already said, the changes are what we can legitimately expect of people, and they are reasonable and proportionate, and they move on as society has moved on. So all good, logical stuff, which I heartily recommend to Council.
Thank you, Peter. I'd like to open up the floor for any questions or comments. We've got Niall here as well to answer anything. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, just wanted to stress that the use of indoor fireworks, particularly flares, really does need to be looked at very, very carefully as a result of what happened in Switzerland and also in other places as well. I used to be involved in the nighttime industry. I did it for 30 years, and you forget how dangerous some of these things can be. And I know it can't be a condition as such, but at the end of the day, there should be some serious advice put in about some of these things if they do kind of raise their head like they have done recently, if there's any chance that it could happen here.
Thank you, Paul. Other comments or thoughts? Natalie?
Yeah, just something I pointed out last week at exec that we're missing some dates, 4.7, and also the paper still states David Harrison as the lead member, and following Vic's email, we now understand that is Jeremy, just in case anyone was confused by why Jeremy was speaking to it.
Thank you, Natalie. Yeah, it's moved portfolios, hasn't it, in terms of the report? But I'm sure we can make those changes. Thank you. Any other comments or thoughts? Okay, should we move to the vote, Nisha?
All those in favour, could you raise your cards now, please? That's unanimous.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, agenda item 10, Community Infrastructure Levy Draft Charging Schedule. And for this, I move to David Harrison.
Thank you very much. And to assist me, because it's nearly 900 pages, 895 pages, so I assume you've all read it. So you should have plenty of questions. I haven't read it all. I've read most of it, but not all of it. But we have Isabel and Hannah at the back who've come from Wychavon and are very keen to answer any questions, I think. No, they're shaking their heads. All right, near enough. We've been 30 minutes so far, and Councillor Walton's record was last week, and he ain't going to beat it this week because we've already passed it. This item should take, to be honest, about 2 hours, but it isn't going to. I'm going to give you a summary first, if I can. Purpose of the report seeks council approval to publish our community infrastructure levy draft charging schedule for consultation. This is to go out for consultation, 4 weeks. I thought it normally are 6 weeks, but this one I think is only 4 weeks. And then we will get the response back, probably mainly from developers, obviously some members of the public as well, I sincerely hope. The aim is to update the existing 2017 SIL rates to align with the South Worcestershire Development Plan review. I think that's fair enough as a sort of a very brief introduction. The recommendations to the council are as shown in paragraph 2 of the report. Approve the draft charging schedule for a 4-week consultation, allow senior officers in consultation with myself to make minor amendments before publication. No compliance issues arise from consultation, permit the officers to submit the schedule for examination. which is actually part of Regulation 19, authorise officers to request that the examiner applies any necessary modifications for compliance. Background. Complicated this is though. SIL sets per square metre charges on new development to help fund infrastructure such as transport, schools, community facilities, flood defences, very important in my area, and many other things. Each South Worcester Council must adopt its own schedule. They're all the same, I believe, but we still have to adopt them individually like we have to do the actual South Worcester Development Plan review. This consultation is planned for February 26 with implementation mid-2026. The evidence base includes the Infrastructure Delivery Plan, IDP, viability assessments and specialist consultation reports. Some development types can support higher SIL rates than currently charged. In fact, a lot of them do. Drive-through buildings and businesses are a new one, and these we are told are viable at £150 per square metre. Another interesting one you will notice is built to rent. I hadn't heard of this before, but this is mainly in city centres. And this is recommended to be zero rate. This is partly because of conversion to get them to build to rent. Implications, financial, difficult. Updated SIL rates expected to significantly increase the revenue for infrastructure. It should do. We've got more houses going in as well, and they've all got to pay, hopefully, most of them anyway. Administrative workload may rise, but can be funded through the SIL regulations. There is a proportion that's set forward in the SIL funding for the councils to take that forward, and also for any outside consultations that they have to do. The risks. Delays could be postpone adoption and therefore reduce infrastructure funding. Don't think that'll happen somehow, but I'll come to that in a moment. If we don't update the rates, it would limit the council's ability to support sustainable development. Setting rates too high could threaten development viability. Strategic sites, Worcestershire Parkway, Rushwick, Mitten are exempt due to high infrastructure costs. Charging them would undermine deliverability. This doesn't include sites that have already got outline planning permission, I believe, but I'll check that with Hannah and Isabel in a moment. But it is a long document, as I said. The impact is it's an established process over many years. Legal oversight will be followed. Council priorities, increase in SIL revenue supports priorities in communities, economic, environment and the 2030 plan. Equalities, potential for positive impacts depending on how funds are allocated. There are some supporting documents here. Appendix 1, draft charging schedule for January 2026. And Appendix 2, the SIL viability report, December 2025. Background papers are also there. That basically covers a brief outline of what it all contains. But there is one thing I must say first. When this originally came to us, it had two amounts of charging, which was basically one for from Worcester South and the other one for the north of the patch. This has now been rejected following lots of comments, sort of thing, and Aspinall Verde have taken that on board, and that has been removed. So there is now only one set rate for the whole district. So I'm very pleased about that. The documentation and what have you, as I said, is many, many pages, starts at page 87 and finishes at page 982. I'm not going to ask who's read it all because I don't want to listen to anybody who's telling little porkies and what have you, but I will bow for any questions. I support the proposals as they are stated and what have you. It gives myself and the officers and the director opportunity to alter anything if anything does come in. Questions?
Thank you, David. I think it was a really good summary. Do we have a seconder, firstly, for this? Thank you, Beverly. And before I go to questions, obviously we do have Anna and Isabel here as well today. So if there are any questions for people that have not had a chance to read all of it or have some queries around it, that'd be great. So open up the floor. Natalie?
Yeah, can you just clarify what we're going out to consultation on, please? Because is it the information in Appendix 1? I think I read that, but on my certainly on my screen, there's no information on Appendix 1 or 2, or so that's sort of page 424. Whether it hasn't translated into a digital format, I don't know. But what are we actually going out to the public? We're not going out with the full almost 1,000 pages, I'm assuming, because if we do that, we'll certainly break our records for the lowest response rate ever, I think, and I wouldn't want that. So yeah, what are we consulting on, please?
Isabel?
Yes, so we are consulting on Appendix 1, the draft charging schedule. Appendix 2 is the supporting evidence that sits behind the recommendations within that draft charging schedule, and we're publishing that for transparency alongside that.
Sorry, where can I find that in this massive pages, please?
Thank you. Other questions? Comments, Paul?
There is a huge distortion in renovating buildings depending on the VAT rate that is charged. How does the SIL differences in charging relate to those differences in VAT? Because that can really make projects viable or not viable. And I just wondered if there'd been any movements on that. I gather there hasn't been anything national. They should have sorted that out years ago, but they haven't. But I just wondered if you had taken that into consideration, because it really does make a difference, doesn't it?
Thank you.
Yes, so the Greenfield-Brownfield split deals with this. So when we assess the brownfield sites in the viability testing, part of that is to consider the remediation and redevelopment costs of sites that are on brownfield locations as well. And that's why you tend to see lower rates on those typologies.
Yeah, and 2 years of empty houses.
Thank you both. Sorry, Paul first.
I've had quite a lot to say on this over a period of time. And I would like to say tonight that I'm very pleased that the viability rates change has been, the variability rate change has been removed. It's good as well that the consultants have accepted that as being the best way forward. I could never see why it was in the first place, but I'm glad it's out. There also, somewhere in all the records, is a comment that the spending of the SIL will progress. It's taken a long time with very little happening so far. So I hope that, that the meetings that are shown somewhere will actually produce quicker results, because there's no point in having the money if we don't spend it. As close to developments as we can get, the bigger benefit the estates will be.
Thank you, Paul. Beverly? Yours not working. Do you want to? Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Thank you. Yes, thank you. I'm very happy to second this recommendation and paper. And thank you to the officers for obviously a considerable amount of work in preparing this. and also for the question from Councillor McVeigh regarding the clarification on what it is we're consulting on. I just wondered if ahead of going to the vote, if you could, if our officers might be able to explain the reasons for the, I suppose, elevation in charges as outlined in Appendix 1, and just some of the logic behind it would be really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. So it's a bit of a complicated one, but it's to do, so it calculates changes in policy requirements as well. So the emerging SWDPR will obviously have greater infrastructure costs on developments. So we're testing typologies that may come forward against those costs and seeing what headroom remains based on the current viability evidence compared nationally. So it's based on that. It's saying that there is a lot more headroom in the sites to support that, particularly on greenfield typologies.
Thank you. Thank you, Beverly. Any other questions before we go to the Natalia?
I didn't want to speak ahead of other people who wanted to speak, but I'm still not clear of it, because Appendix 1 is the whole document then.
No.
So Appendix 1 is at the top of page 93, but then there's also Appendix 1 later on.
Vic,
I'm-
sorry,
I'm-
you've got a
Just
copy of it.
tell me
haven't you?
which page, because 93 on my screen is the front page of the document that you've just got in front of you, which does say Appendix 1, and then there's another Appendix 1 and 2 and 3, etc. in the digital pack that's blank.
So in my pack, Appendix 1, and I think this is the document we're consulting on, starts on page 93 and finishes on page 114. The rest is the supporting information, i.e.
Right.
the reports provided by Aspinall Verdi.
Okay, so that all of those pages are going to be available in the libraries for people to look and consult on, yeah?
Nods at the back, Natalie.
Right. I understand that a bit more fully now. Thank you for the clarification, because it is a lot of pages, as Elizabeth has said. So,
Thank you. David?
Can I just add, if you look at the top of page 116, it does say Appendix 2, which is the accessibility report, which is referred to, and the viability report, and what have you, sort of thing. So that's the bit that's telling you how they come to the conclusions for Appendix 1.
Thank you. Can I go to Tom?
Chairman, thank you. It's a sort of related question, really. In terms of the amount of money that our officers bring into the district as a consequence of plan applications, they are to be congratulated. And it does amazing things, and it can be transformatory in many local communities. But the one thing it lacks, if I'm going to be absolutely honest, is the degree of member involvement that I'd like to see. It seems to me something always of a rather nice surprise to find something in my area is being invested in without my knowledge. And that's always a good thing. And if you look at the millions that we are tracked in through our community services, far more than we actually allocate ourselves per annum in everything we do. So I just wonder whether, especially since the figures are going to go up, whether we might have a protocol in future where there is some member engagement in the allocation.
Thank you, Tom. David, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, I can't say that I have lost out on member involvement, certainly in my patch, but sorry?
You've done very well, David.
I'm trying hard and what have you, but I've made a note of it and will obviously sort of look into that as well. But please remember that the parish councils also get part of the funding and what have you, sort of thing, which is up to 25% depending on whether they've got a neighbourhood plan.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Okay, shall we go to the vote on this, Misha?
All those in favour, could you raise your cards now, please? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Just
Okay.
before we finish, can
Of
I
course,
just
David.
say one thing? I would
course you can.
like to thank all the officers
that have been dealing in the SWDPR and also within this SIL and also many other documents which have been progressing over the last 5 years. And I thank both Isabel and Hannah for taking the time to come over here today. Thank you both very much.
Thank you. No, great. Agenda item 11 is for forward plan, just for noting only. Paul, just show me your hand then, quickly.
Yeah, just there's a notification. The recycling centre in Malvern is going to be closed on the 11th of February. Just letting everybody know. If you could let anybody know that might be interested in that, because it's a long way to come for some people not to be able to use it. It's being re-tarmacked.
Thank you, Paul. We have no notices of motion, so let's close the meeting. And our next council meeting is the 27th of February. Thank you, everybody.